Okay, class, let's quickly go over some of the pitfalls and some of the things you can make it easier for you if you're not familiar with doing a still life. I just got these pictures of water bottles here. Let's pretend that you've gotten those, you've shot those by yourself, in your house. So they're all original images, right? Here I'm on the layer that has the bottles, and I'm copying that. Instead of doing edit, copy, you see the keystroke? Apple C, I'm going to do Apple C. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go over to my page here and I'm going to paste it. Now, I want to get rid of that white that's around the bottle. So I'm going to select that and delete it. Okay, so now I've got this bottle here. Okay, now the assignment is to do a still life. So let's say you presented this. Let's say it was like 11:59 Sunday night and you're like, oh my God, I don't have anything. I'm going to at least present something. So you do this. Well, as far as, it might be a nice portrait of a bottle, but it's not, it doesn't really follow the assignment directions, which is to have a number of elements. And why do we have a number of elements instead of just portraying like a portrait of something? Is because we want to talk about composition and movement and depth and space and all that, and repetition and things that make compositions potentially interesting. All right. So the first thing I would say probably is I'd say, well, what about the space? It's just this white psychological space, right? How do you subdivide the space? Well, one thing you do, and I would hate to show this to you because I wouldn't want everyone to do this, right? But you could, say on this layer here, remember think of this as like tracing paper, so I'm picking a new piece of tracing paper. I could make a tabletop, all right? Remember, it's 11:59, I got to get this in. Rule of thirds. I'm not going to put the tabletop in the middle. I'm not going to put it up here. I could. I'm going to put it down here. I'm already thinking in terms of the rule of thirds. All right. And I'm going to pick a color. I'm going to just fill it with black, and that is Option Delete. That's the keystroke. It's just fill. Edit. Should be fill. And there's another keystroke for you. I don't use that one. You can see these little, don't worry about these things around here. This is just a demo in terms of talking about still life and composition. Now, centered, right? It's a pretty boring still life, okay? But we at least have separated the negative space. We've created a set design, right? So, think about you're a set designer, and now here's your first actor. Let's bring some more actors in because, Prentice, he's going to want to have more stuff in there. So let's get this over there, copy, Apple C, learn the keystrokes, paste. You'll see it pastes it into its own layer above the other one. I'm going to select the white. Okay. Now, here we go. Here's another, let's say you did this. Well, first of all, it's just an immediate, the thing is it's a fast read. Boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. You come in and you hit it, and there's all this space, and there's nothing to do, and it's a very boring play going on, right? Okay, what if we do this? What happens? All right? What happens is that we create depth because we're overlapping. Now, I'm going to change the size of this, and I use Apple T or Command T. It's also Edit Transform right there. You can do it longhand. And I'm going to make this a little smaller. Okay. Put behind it. So we've created depth, but it's two same size elements close together. It's still pretty boring, right? Let's go get two more elements. Now, I'm going to hold down my Shift key so I can add a selection to that. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go over here. We're going to paste it in. We're going to hit V for the move tool, bring it over. We're going to get rid of that white. I'm going to hit Shift so I can select that white in there. Shift, select that white in there. I'm going to hit Delete, and I'm going to move this over. Okay, we got three things now, right? So Prentice said overlap to create depth. Well, let's just overlap the heck out of this. It's not a very interesting composition, right? But it's getting there. It's at least more stuff, okay? Let's put one more thing in there, and we can talk about composition. Let's pick this. Copy. Come over. You'll see it creates a new layer every time you paste something in, which is really nice, right? Apple D is deselect, right? And my select tool has auto select layer. So you look over here, I'm selecting and it's jumping around from layer to layer, right? Okay, so 11:59, I gotta hand it in. I see a lot of this stuff. Here's the problem with this. I mean, it's okay if you're doing an ad for bottles, but for a composition in a design class, the problem is the eye comes in, it goes dun 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 dun, and it's done, right? So how do we make it interesting? All right. I mean, what about scale? All these things are the same size. None of them are referencing the edge. Remember, there's two approaches. There's the box approach, which is this, where you put everything in the box, or you pull your drawer out and you look into it and you see this stuff. And there's the window on a world approach, where you have some things off the page. That, to me, is becoming more interesting. And it's going to make Prentice happy because he likes to see things go off the page, right? So now we got a little overlapping. That yellow bottle doesn't really seem to fit in, right? Okay, now referencing the edge, everything's still the same size, still pretty boring. That background is pretty boring. What if we put a gradient in the background? See the gradient tool? Gradient tool, I am going to select, where's my magic wand? And again, I hate showing this to you guys because I don't want y'all to just be doing this, right? But I mean, gradients, you can see that white there. I mean, it does make it a little more evocative, but you can see you get a bunch of cookie cutter assignments in there. All right, what if we made something really big? Okay, in the foreground, right? So we look past it. Okay, so the eye comes in, boom, hits this, goes back to this, okay, maybe, and then over this. What about a little movement? Apple T is, again, edit, free transform. What if we turned this like that, right? Let's get rid of that white. So, what if we turned it, like that? It's still not very interesting. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, messing around in here because believe me, I could. Anyway, the eye comes in, rolls down along that bottle, hits this bottle, sees this bottle, and we're done. All right, let me do one thing then. Let's play with scale. You will hear me throughout the course talk about big, medium, and small shapes. Big, we've got. Medium, we've got. What about small shapes? Let's take this guy and put it back here, and then let's cut him. There's different ways to put him behind, But now, big shape, right? Here's a big shape. Here's a medium shape, and here's a small shape. The eye comes in, down, over, sees maybe the focal point here, comes over to here, right? And then comes back around. What are some other things that in the end that we can do to make this maybe a little more interesting in terms of, a background? What about filling in a little bit of that with maybe, a wall or something? So we're subdividing the space, making it a more interesting stage set. And then we're thinking big, medium, small. We're thinking about movement. We're referencing the edge, right? We're thinking about rule of thirds and placement. Not everything's centered, right? And we're thinking about movement, okay? That's our classic still life kind of setup.